see. Like a slight delay with this, but hopefully. Come on now. Catch on. There we go. All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Casanova Podcast. I'm your host, Mikhail Casanova, and I have the honor and the privilege of having the iconic, the legendary Tommy Tallarico. Man.
Where is he?
He's right there. It's you.
Oh, that's me. That's me. Wow. I sound important.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
How's it going, man? How are you doing today?
Great. Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me. The #1 podcast in Hawaii. If it wasn't for this stupid Corona crap, I'd be there live in person, my friend.
Right.
The heck am I doing here?
Well, the next time you're out here, man, we definitely have to link up because I saw you. I got to meet you at your show that you did, Video Games Live, when you were out here. I can't.
So you were at the show in Hawaii.
Yeah, front row.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, we did. Hopefully, I didn't. Maybe you caught a guitar pick or something, but yeah, we did 2 shows in a row with the Hawaii's symphony.
Mm-hmm.
Great musicians. Great. I mean, I remember it well because you always remember Hawaii, but yeah, and my wife had come out for that because we did a little mini vacation afterwards. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Cool.
So,
thank you for supporting Video Games Live. I appreciate it.
Love it. It was a fantastic show. Dude, you are okay. I'm gonna say this. That when my wife and I, when we got to see the show, man, you are an artist on stage. Like this, the way like okay, so I play music too. I'm a guitarist and a bassist, and it's like you know that feeling when you're playing like a set and you're just the music just takes over and it's just running. I was watching you do that on so many different songs that you were doing. I was like, man, he is.
I definitely have fun up there, and I don't care who's watching, kind of thing. I just let all the emotion and everything take over. It's just I just keep it real. Just keep it real. People appreciate it, and people I never try to be something I'm not.
Yeah, definitely. And man, let's just go ahead and plug where people can find you and anything you got coming up in the future. Where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I mean, my website, if people want to know about my history in the industry, over 30 years in the game industry. I own the Guinness World Record for the person who's worked on the most video games in their lifetime. My mother's very proud. And my dad says, all those quarters we gave you growing up as a kid finally paid off. But if anyone's interested in finding out about my career, all the games I've worked on, all this stuff like that, my website's my last name, Tallarico.com. And here's some music, all this music stuff I've done as well, the albums, videos, TV shows, all that stuff's there. And of course, I'm on Twitter at Tommy Tallarico and Facebook and all that crap. And then, of course, if you're interested in video game music, then you want to check out videogameslive.com. Sign up to our mailing list. If we're in your area, we email you and let you know we're coming. Of course, because of the whole COVID-19 thing, Corona, they've had to postpone all of our shows for the rest of this year. But we start up right at the beginning of next year in Salt Lake City. So the best thing to do is sign up to the mailing list. And of course, if we have any Intellivision Amico fans out there or people who are thinking about checking out Amico or finding out more information, please go to intellivisionamico.com and hit that mailing list. And our YouTube channel is actually really cool too, because we put up a lot of videos and kind of fun stuff. So yeah, there's my plug. We'll get it right out of the way. Now we can start talking.
Yeah, and links to everything, people, is down in the description below the podcast. So links for Tommy, as well as Video Games Live, as well as Intellivision. Everything, links to everything is down there. So make sure you go and check it out. And today we're gonna be covering a lot of things. We're gonna be doing a deep dive into like how you got into music, the video game industry. We're gonna talk about Intellivision. We're going to talk about the Amico. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about some detractors too. We got
Let's start with that.
Okay. We can let's kick it off. So, let's see. How should I be politically correct?
I think you should just come out and say it, because when you told me this right before we went on air, I was literally shocked, and I think people need to know about this and how kind of disgusting it is. But I'd rather have it here for your mouth, because it's too unbelievable if I say it.
So for the audience and everyone who's listening, I actually had people from a certain podcast, the certain CU podcast. I had
that's the PU podcast. You said it.
Yeah.
Woo!
I had Ian actually reach out to me yesterday after I put out the announcement that I was gonna have Tommy on my show, and it was actually pretty crazy because I'm like, wow, you've never acknowledged my existence. I didn't know you even know who I was. So
well, they stalk me on Twitter, so that's probably they probably saw it from there. But go ahead. Then what happened?
It's just calling me a shill and a sellout and all this. And I'm like, okay, well, first off, I don't even know who the fuck you are. Well, yeah, I know who you are, but who are you? It's like, it was just weird, and it's
well, it's sick. It's sick is what it is, and I mean, how pathetic that this Ian character reaches out, who's clearly unhinged at this point. I mean, how many other YouTubers have to smack him down before he's like, he has zero self-awareness of how he comes off, to other people. But to reach out to somebody he doesn't even know and PM you, private message you on Twitter to call you out because you're a podcast and you want to interview me. This is how insane these two have become, like zero self-awareness. And I think what it is, obviously they're cowards. They won't talk to me because they know they don't have the, the wherewithal or, to even have a conversation, because everything they always say about us is lies, and they exaggerate and they give a bunch of misinformation. For them, they're just trying to save their channel, right? Their subs haven't really been going up, so they feel that if they can cause a lot of controversy, more people will click and view and this and that. And to be clear, I've reached out a number of times to those guys, and I've said, hey, look, why don't you have me on the show, and we'll get a whole bunch of other YouTubers and we'll do a big live stream together. Everybody will get a whole bunch of people watching. You can ask me all the tough questions you want, and we'll donate all the money. We'll gather all the YouTubers and we'll donate all the money to like Child's Play charity or something. Mm-hmm. Nope, of course not. They, cowards. But how pathetic that they go out of their way to message people. I'm curious. Did you answer them back, or did you just ignore it?
I just ignored it. I looked at it and I'm like, it's one of those surreal things, because it's like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, are you really? And it's so funny because I've been a YouTuber or a content creator for the last 4.5 years, and I've seen so much bullshit when it comes to a variety of YouTubers. Like, I've, now that with them, and that paints my view of them now. And, I've dealt with others, like the guy who used to be at IGN, who, famously was stealing smaller creators' reviews and passing off his own, which he did that to me too.
Did he really?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. There's a Nintendo Switch, Ori Real Arcade Pro 5 controller review that yeah. So it's just crazy when I see how some people will do anything for clout, and for to remain relevant.
Too. They're irrelevant folks but the funny thing is, remember, they go around YouTube saying how much more famous they are than me too. So that's the level of intelligence and self-awareness that you're dealing with there. But okay, anyway, I just thought that was funny when you told me that these people now are literally going out every time I post an interview now, they contact the people who are interviewing me and call them a shill. And this is a whole level of disgusting. Well, again, you know, people are finding out who they really are, and they're showing their true colors, and it is what it is.
It's just sad, you know, and it's because I saw Review Tick USA's video where he did a response about it, and it's like, I was like, really? They really had to go into that? It's like, wow. Oh,
I mean, and when you listen, you know, to that, I mean, they're unhinged. They really are. Yeah. They're literally unhinged. Yeah. As they surround themselves with their stuffed animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I have any stuffed animals? I better not say that. I might have some. Okay. Anyway, moving on. I
still got toys, so I think.
I think we all got toys. But.
So I guess with that, we can roll into. Let me ask you, what would you like to? You want to start off? You want to give a background on how you got into music, or you want to kick it off with the Amico and Intellivision? Which one do you feel like doing?
No, I want you. You tell me whatever you want. Maybe people in the chat want to know some stuff. Whatever you want.
Okay, so if there's anyone in the chat, if there are any questions you guys have, feel free to drop them in the chat, and then we'll definitely roll. Okay, we got some for music. All right, okay. So, giving your musical background, you know, what got you into music and fostered your love for it?
A couple of things. So it's a great question. Not really asked that too much. A few things. So, you know, I think when we're all young kids growing up, we always want to impress our parents, right? And so my parents were a product of the 50s. And so when I was growing up, my mom and dad, they'd be listening to like Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, the music of the 50s. And my mom had gotten a piano, an upright piano, because she wanted to kind of take lessons. This is when I was like 3 years old. And of course, you always want to impress your parents. So for me, I'd see, you know, kind of like my mom playing or whatever. And I started learning their records. Like I'd put the record on. And so like, you know, something like Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis, I was like banging that out when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Jailhouse Rock, you know, by Elvis and all these kind of things. So that really kind of got me. And of course, your parents are like all excited and, oh my God, look at it, you know, do it again, you know, and then friends would, you know, neighborhood friends or their friends would come over. Look what he can do. And, you know, so it makes you feel all, you know, kind of important and, you know, getting your parents to be so excited. So I think that had a lot to do with the spark at first, you know, just wanting to please my parents. But and then of course I have a very famous cousin, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. His real name is Steven Tallarico. So and we were I grew up in Massachusetts, and at that point, you know, they're called the Boston Bad Boys. They were, you know, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, where Aerosmith was based. So they'd play around the area. They'd play the Boston Gardens or or Worcester. And so we would go see him when I was growing up. And of course, you know, the family always kind of sits on the side of the stage. And so again, when you're like 6, 7, 8 years old, to me, he was just cousin Steven. He wasn't like, you know, whatever. I mean, I'd know him, you'd see him at picnics or whatever. But when you see him, like, you know, and you know him, and when you're that young, and it's just like, oh, he's performing in front of 30,000 people. It's kind of like, oh, that's look, he's having fun. That's cool. That's what I want to do someday. You know, like it was never like, it never felt like an impossible dream. You know what I mean? Like it felt, you know, it was never, you know, I mean, I wish so many more people would encourage their kids that like you can do anything, you put your mind to it, and so that barrier for me was never there. Like it never felt like an impossible dream, and I saw how much fun he was having. So yeah, that I think those two combination of things probably really got me into my love of music. And then of course when I was I would have been 8 years old, Rocky came out, 1976. And when Rocky came out, again, I'm 100% Italian, right? And from the East Coast. And that music and that story, that underdog story, just really, again, when you're 8 years old, seeing this for the first time, it really affected me. And that music that Bill Conti wrote just filled my heart and emotions with, so much joy and excitement and power. And then a year later, 1977, what comes out? Star Wars, right? And so that music and John Williams. And so bam, bam. And when you're 7, 8 years old, it's just, mind blowing. And then I'll tell you another funny story. So I'm listening, and that was really the first time I was aware, like that I paid attention to orchestral music. So I go up to my mom, and of course back then there's no internet. We had to go to the library if you wanted to learn something. So I asked my mom, this guy John Williams wrote the music for Star Wars, and I wanted to learn more about him. So we went to the library, and I'm looking up John Williams, and I got a couple of magazines that had interviews with him, and I was looking, and I forget the magazine or whatever it was, but he was talking about this guy Beethoven and Mozart, and how Beethoven was an influence or something, and so I'm like, well, Mom, who's this? So I looked for John Williams albums, really any there at the library, but this Beethoven guy was there, and I'm like, well, back then you could take albums out from the library as well. So I take out this album, and it's Beethoven's Ninth, and I bring it home and I put it on the record player. And there's only a few times in my life where I was just, where you're just stunned the first time you hear something. I would also say, which is total opposite end, but around the same time in 1978, Van Halen's first album came out as well too. And I was just hearing things on there from a guitar standpoint I'd never heard in my life. But when I listened to Beethoven's Ninth, though, it like did something to me. It transformed my entire life, and it opened up. Like I'd never felt so much emotion from listening to something. And again, I'm 9 years old at the time. So when you discover music on your own like that, it wasn't like I had a music teacher that shoved it in my face, or you have to study this or that. When you discover Beethoven on your own, and especially the Ninth Symphony, and I started listening, and I wanted to try to start to learn how to play it. And when you break down the Ninth Symphony, if you listen to it, and I challenge anyone out there to please check this out, and you'll really start to appreciate the way that Beethoven orchestrated and arranged stuff was just unbelievable. And of course, he was deaf at the time that he wrote the Ninth. But if you listen and you break down and you listen to what the violins are doing, and the cellos and the woodwinds and the choir and the and it's just like, wow. And then when the choir comes in, da 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 da, and the music's still going, and all doing this, all different things. It was just like I took the freaking red pill in the Matrix, and it's just like, it was just so amazing to me. But the funny part about this is, so again, I'm 9 years old at the time. So 9, 10 actually, in 1970. I was born in 68, so I would have been 9 or 10. And so a couple weeks later, I'm reading the Sunday comics, the Sunday newspaper. That's where we used to get all our comics, in the back of the Sunday newspaper. It was because it was color, right? Only on Sundays. And then I saw an ad that Beethoven was coming to Springfield, Massachusetts with the Springfield Symphony. The Springfield Symphony was playing Beethoven. And I'm like, Mom, Beethoven's coming to Springfield, Massachusetts. And she's like, what are you talking about, Beethoven? I'm like, Beethoven, Ludwig von Beethoven is going to be here in spring. I had no idea the guy. And so I'm like, you got to take me to the Springfield Symphony at the hall. And she's explaining, she goes, no, he was like, for like 200 years. What? Play his music still? Yeah, okay. So my mom takes me to the Springfield Symphony. We're about 10 rows back, boom, sitting in the center. And again, hearing music live like that, and it was Beethoven's Ninth. I had tears in my eyes. Here's a 10-year-old kid crying because he's listening to music. And just the passion that just kind of flowed out there. And so that was pretty amazing. It was a, kind of a life-changing thing. And to kind of button up this whole story, because we'll move on, but about, let me see, it would have been 2 or 3 years ago. And I moved away from Springfield. I grew up there my whole life. I was there for 21 years. And then I moved to California, and I've been here 31 years. But I had never gone back to Springfield as a performer. I'd gone back a couple of times for like 10-year, 20-year high school reunions. But I get a call from the Springfield Symphony, and they say, we'd like to kind of, have you perform, and we want to honor you. And we're going to rent out the big Marriott ball across the street, and we're going to have a big free after party. Everybody in the audience can come and celebrate you and everything. Wow. And we want to put you on. And I got to tell you, man, it was because here, and I broke down and cried probably 3 or 4 times, not only before the show, but actually on stage as well. Because here I am in the story, performing this music with the Springfield Symphony, some of people who of which were in the orchestra 40 years ago, but then I literally pointed, same hall, Symphony Hall, and I said, see that right around there, about 10 rows back, that's where I was sitting 40 years ago. And to be here on stage, and my point is that, Video Games Live was so great because it's ushering in a whole new generation of young people to appreciate the orchestra and appreciate the arts and appreciate, symphonic music. And so I wonder how many people were in the audience that night, was my story, that, hopefully they'll be inspired like I was 40 years ago by these people on stage. And it was unbelievable. And my mom was there. And my family was there, and friends I hadn't seen from high school. And they put me on the front page of the newspaper, and they put me on the rock radio station, the #1 rock radio station, Rock 102, that I grew up listening to as a kid. And the DJ I had listened to, who was still there. It was just, I couldn't believe it. And then he went to the show. They had me on before the show, and then I stayed a couple days extra to meet friends and catch up. And then he called me up after the show, and he said, dude, you have to come back in tomorrow because this is the best show I've ever seen. Are you kidding me? So I went back the next day, and he interviewed me, talking about how amazing the show was, and he had no idea how powerful video game music was, and so proud that like somebody from Springfield had, is touring around the world. I was on cloud 9 for about a month after that. So that was my a little history with music.
Man, I was like, man, I didn't want you to stop. That was amazing.
We could talk about just those things for 2 hours, but I want everyone to get their questions in.
Definitely. I know we got a question earlier. Someone wanted to ask, will there be another pre-order for the wood grain model in Intellivision?
Yes, yeah. I'm glad somebody brought that up. So yeah, we had we did a Founders Edition pre-order, which was limited to 2,600 units. All of those units are going to be hand signed and numbered by me underneath the console. It also came with a $50 gift card, a Founders pin, a Founders patch. Came with a couple of soundtrack albums, both digital and physical. A 3D lenticular Running Man poster signed by all of the people in the hardware group who helped create the machine. That was the Founders Edition, and we did 2,600 of them, which was kind of a little dig on our old rivals Atari, the 2,600. So we did 2,600, and they sold out in 5 hours. It was crazy. So wow. We did a VIP pre-order, which included a $25 gift card. And we had the wood grain, and then the graphite black, and the glacier white. So we put 3 on sale, and those were for a limited time. We did it for about 2 weeks. Did like about 10,000 of those, and so we pulled it off because we promised people it was only going to be a limited time. You know, this whole Corona thing's happening, and it just doesn't feel right to me to like limit something like this for folks who, you know, are in the middle of like, you know, maybe getting laid off or money is tight, and it just doesn't seem right, the timing of everything. So we had to pull it off for now. But there's going to be, and we had certain exclusive partnerships with other organizations where they could put up the pre-order. And they would have access to the pre-order as well. So one of those is actually happening, I think, tomorrow. It's starting tomorrow, and I'll put some news out about that. So yeah, people will start to be able to get the pre-order stuff again, and then us on our own website, we're going to do it again as well. So even if folks don't have, take care of your personal stuff first. Don't be spending money on a video game console if you're not, financially, if you're wondering what the next couple months are going to bring, please don't spend the money on our console, because in a couple of months from now, when things are steady and back down to normal, we'll do that one again. So it's different times, and it's a different crazy situation. So for those people who are looking to get the VIP and who are a little unsure at this point financially, don't worry. We'll take care of you. We'll put it on again in another 2 or 3 months when things hopefully go back to normal.
Okay. I just got a lot of questions about the Amico. I guess we can go ahead and dive right into there.
Sure. Yeah.
So, let's see. So we got a question here. One of the people, Orange County Strike Force wants to ask, are there any plans on bringing IntelliVoice games to Amico, like B-17 Bomber and Space Spartans?
So it's because we have the 2 guys who did those 2 games, B-17 Bomber and Space Spartans. Their name's Steve Roney and Bill Fisher. And both of the guys are still at Intellivision. They start 1981, and they're still in our office, and they're still working with us. In fact, Steve Roney is one of the co-founders of the new Intellivision Entertainment, the new entity. He's a co-founder along with me, and Bill Fisher is our VP of technology. So he's really doing a lot of the back end server stuff and everything. He's deep into that right now. So as you can imagine, if there were any games that we were going to bring back, having the 2 guys who are originally part of it and created it. We're focused on B-17 Bomber first, and we're not sure if that's going to be on launch. It might be, But if it's not, it'll be soon after, a month or 2 or 3 months after launch, depending on, how well it goes. But that one could be available on launch. But more than likely, hopefully by this Christmas. And I got to tell you, the way it's being done is so unique. I've never seen another game do anything like this that we're doing. And again, when you have a controller that has a screen on it, and everybody has their own screen, and you can hook up mobile devices, I'm telling you, it's pretty cool couch co-op. Let's just say that.
Okay. And we got a question from Gamer Thumb TV. He wants to know, can you give some sort of description on how Earthworm Jim will work with the touchscreen focus control?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one of the things that people may get when people think of Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 on the Genesis and Super Nintendo, there's actually we did stuff for the Saturn and original PlayStation too, but Sega CD. When you think PC, it was on PC too, DOS and Windows. But the game itself, Earthworm Jim 1 and 2, when people think about it, they think 2D side-scrolling platform game. But if you really think about it, Jim on the rocket level in Andy Asteroids, Jim, pounding the snot into the bungee jump, bouncing puppies, whipping, we had a game show elements in there in Earthworm Jim too. There were, we were limited. The team of us who did that, we were limited with the technology at the time. And I'll give you a little insight on how we created Earthworm Jim. Okay. The games is that we didn't have a game design document, and we don't for this new one either. Wow. Because, and that's very different from the way most people work. But what we did is we started with a joke. Mm-hmm. We would all sit around and say, "What's funny?" What and somebody says, I forget who, but somebody said, it wasn't me, but somebody said, wouldn't it be funny if there was a cow, and right at the beginning of the game, and we launched the cow and every single level in the background, you'd see the cow fly through some way. And then at the end of the game, he kind of, comes back or something. And we didn't even have what we were going to do at the end. We just knew that we wanted to bring him back at the very end. And that's funny. Oh my God, that would be hilarious. Okay, now let's build gameplay around that. And so we had tons of ideas of stuff that would be really funny, jokes, and then we would build the gameplay around that. But because we were limited so much to the the hardware at that time, half the great stuff that we wanted to do couldn't be done. And I say this seriously, and people think I'm joking or whatever, but I'm telling you, the Amico controller is the only an Amico system. That's why we're doing it exclusively for our system, because what we're going to be doing cannot be done on any other machine. And it's not because of processing power or graphic capability. I'm talking about the controllers that have a screen, a color touch screen, couch co-op, speaker, microphone, accelerometer, right? The light up, here, let me turn this on. The light up disc, the way our controllers, force feedback, we're using all of that stuff within the game. So I don't want people to think it's going to be a 2D game and how are you going to use this controller to control a 2D game. Yes, there's 2D there's 2D side-scrolling platform element for sure, but the jokes and the way that we're, planning this whole thing, you gotta, every game for Amico, you try not to look at it like it's a like a PlayStation or a Switch or an Xbox or a controller like that. We never intended the game to be like that before. And now 25 years later, the team's back together. We're doing what we always dreamed we could do. So, and the other thing too, quickly, I want to say, because some people are like concerned, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, how are they going to do something on this console or whatever? Look, here's the deal. The 10 people who worked on Earthworm, the first we ever did together was called Global Gladiators on the Sega Genesis. It won Game of the Year, and it won the Year, and it won Art of the Year. There were a number of publications back then. This is pre-internet, right? Mm-hmm. Magazines would give out awards, or Sega would give out awards, or Nintendo would give out awards. So the first game the team worked on, hit it out of the park, Game of the Year, Audio of the Year, Art of the Year. Second game we worked on together, right after that, was Cool Spot. Won Game of the Year, Audio of the Year, Art of the Year. Third game we worked on was Disney's Aladdin, biggest selling game of that year. And it also won multiple Game of the Year, multiple Audio of the Year, multiple Art Award of the Year. The fourth game we worked on was Earthworm Jim. Won Game of the Year, Audio of the Year, Art of the Year. Fifth game and final game that we all worked together was Earthworm Jim 2. One Game of the Year, Audio of the Year. So we went 5 for 5, 5 games, 5 years in a row, knocked it out of the park every time. And now, 25 years later, we're coming back together. Is somebody worried that the game is going to suck? We have 1,000% batting average. We didn't all of a sudden become stupid at what makes a fun or funny game. We lose our sense of humor. The music's not going to suck. I can guarantee it. The art's not going to suck. The funny humor isn't going to suck. The gameplay is not going to suck. So don't worry about it. It's going to be something so unique and new, though, that a lot of people, I think, are going to enjoy it. And 25 years in the making.
And that's the thing. One of the things that I find interesting, and I brought this up to other people I know that work in the gaming industry, is how like you're making games like 10, 20, 25, 30 years ago. You were constrained by the limitations, like you said, of the technology. Whereas now you're able to, the limits, like the chains are taken off. You can do whatever you want to do. We're seeing that with Square, with Final Fantasy VII Remake, with Capcom, with Resident Evil 3 Remake. Like the ability to, as a developer, to create the game that's fitting to your vision is so real now. But the question I want to have for you is, like, do you feel that there may be some purists that want the exact thing that they had before modernized? Because I see this cycle, and maybe you've seen it too, where it's like gamers are like, I want a game to come back and be a one-to-one to what it was before, but with modern graphics. A company does it, then they're like, I wish they took chances and did something new. Company does that, then they're like, oh, I wanted to go. It's like a cycle. So,
right. So I'll tell you, we love the legacy of Earthworm Jim, and without giving away too much information, anyone who liked Earthworm Jim 1 or 2, we're going to bring so much of that back in a new way. So those people are not going to be disappointed. We're going to refer to those first 2 games a lot in a very funny way, and in a way that no one's ever done before. Hilariously. I really wish I could tell more, but I can't. But it's so funny and exciting, some of the things that we're doing. I'll give you a little bit. A little bit. People will be able to go back into those games during our game.
Oh.
But in a way that's very different from the original game. I'll leave. I know everyone's like going, what are you even talking about? But there's a lot of nods that we do to the original game, and we have jokes in the game where you'll all of a sudden find yourself transformed into the original games, but not in the way that you think. Not in, all of a sudden you're just not in the Genesis game and you're Earthworm Jim again. Mm-hmm. It's a new it's the same level, but a different perspective and way of seeing it. and these are just little things. That's not even the whole game. These are just little side things that we do to kind of like, nod to the history, and people who love those first games are going to freak the hell out. It's hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't worry. Yeah, so those people don't have to worry. They're gonna love this.
So we have another question. It's, how would you address criticisms about Amico coming into an environment ruled by the big three of Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft? Yeah, I mean, we're the underdog. We got everything stacked against us. We're trying to pull off the impossible. Little group of guys going up again, David versus the three Goliaths, right? Fourth, if you count Google and Stadia. And that's why it's kind of, disgusting when people like Pat and Ian, want to try to destroy us. It's like they're trying to. We're trying to bring something beautiful and unique and positive to the world. We're saying like, hey, everybody, maybe all the people who don't play video games out there, let's try to prop up the industry. Let's get people playing games together again. Let's create positivity and bring people together. And some of those folks like that are trying to destroy that. You have to wonder, like, what kind of people they really are. So we have all the odds are stacked against us for sure. But we're being true to ourselves, and everybody on this team has so much passion, and we don't really consider ourselves competitors to those folks at all. We're not going for the same audience either. Initially, out of the box, we have a completely different audience, a completely different go-to-market strategy. So, for example, if you add up all the hardcore gamers in the world, those are people who play PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and PC gamers, PC and Mac gamers. Well, the four people who play games on a Mac. So we have, and let's say Google Stadia as well. Okay, so Stadia those doesn't count. Those people, they're considered hardcore gamers. If you play on a game console, there's only 200 million of those people in the world. Yet there's 3 billion people that play casual and or mobile games, right? Mm-hmm. 3 billion. So if you do the math on that, that means that only 7%, less than 7% of the people who play video games play them on a console or a PC. Pretty staggering when you think about. And for the unhinged folks at that podcast who say Nintendo already does this, Nintendo already has the family, and they go into convulsions. I'd like to remind those folks that there's only 55 million Nintendo Switches in the world. Yet 3 billion people who play video games. So meaning that 2% of all the people that play video games in the world, 2% of them have a Switch. Now, would you say that maybe there's some room for the 98% of the other people who don't find that compelling, or who,
So we're not going after the 200 million hardcores out there initially. Look, do I think they'll buy one initially, eventually? I do. Do I think they're going to buy it instead of a PlayStation 5 or Xbox? Hell no. But they might have it as a second or third console when their friends come over. Something that they can play with their mom or their wives or their, if they have kids and whatever, right? But we're not fighting for those 200 million people. We're going after the other 3 billion who've been completely ignored in the home console world since the Nintendo Wii, which was 14 years ago, right? So, but the difference between us even and the Wii is that the Wii was still a very Nintendo-focused machine. Right when, Nintendo, they went right back to their wheelhouse. They know their target audience better than anyone in the world. They really do, And so what did you see on the Wii? It was Zelda and Pikmin and Metroid and Smash Brothers and Mario and all that stuff. That was a lot of their first party stuff. They did some other sports stuff, resort stuff as well too. But the bread and butter was really catering to their hardcore millennial audience who grew up on Pokemon and Zelda and Mario. So our difference is we're going to cater to all those people that they grabbed, the casual gamers, but we're going to instead cater to them, and that hasn't ever been done before to the level that we're going to be doing it, where every single game is couch co-op and single player. Every single game can be played by somebody who might not be a hardcore gamer, and they could find some fun in it somehow. So we're doing even some of our more hardcore things. We put modes in there where even if you just want to like push a button and feel like you're involved with everybody else who's like doing the hardcore thing, you're there assisting or helping. So there's a lot of different stuff that we're doing that's very unique.
Yeah, and the thing to touch on,
there's Smash JT just entered the fray. Yo, Smash.
Up? Hey, Smash, how's it going? To touch on what you were saying about the demographic you're going for, I feel like a lot of people don't understand when it comes to business. There's so many different demographics and markets that you can reach out to.
Yeah,
it's like, we could take let's use computers for example. You got PC, which is the dominant personal computer in the world.
Master race.
Yeah. Then you've got Mac, and then you've got people that use Linux, and then you got other people that use Chrome. And it's like there's a market literally for everything. So I don't understand like the mentality some people have about, there's only the big three. I remember back in the 90s where you had multiple consoles at once. You had Super Nintendo, you had PC Engine, you had Atari Jaguar, you had the Genesis, the 3DO. Like,
well, not too many people had a 3DO, but yes, I see your point. I got one.
But there's a demographic and a market for everything, and it's like I need to go ahead and pre-order one because yeah. So next question for you, and this is going to be again touching on, I guess, kind of the podcast thing that we're referring to, but do you feel that the rise of content creators and independent journalists have become a good thing for the gaming industry, given their ability to reach a new and different demographic, or do you think there are, as example with Pat and Ian, more negatives?
Well, they're not journalists, though, are they? I mean, there's they're
self-proclaimed.
they're not. No, I don't even think they proclaim that, do they? They don't proclaim themselves as journalists. I wouldn't imagine. I hope not. Christ. Yeah, there's folks who consider themselves entertainers and who talk about video games on YouTube channels, and that I think that's cool. The more the merrier. There's some amazing people in fact, I see one of them here. Open Every Box Pete. You know, he's pretty much the exact polar opposite of what you find up on the PU podcast. Did I say that right? PU podcast. So where, you know, where everything they do is negative, everything, you know, Open Every Box Pete, you look at his channel, and everything is overwhelmingly upbeat and positive and things like that. So you know, so there is something out there for everyone. Look, if you're kind of a, you know, negative hater, or you like to watch people rip on stuff all the time, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I personally, sometimes I like, you know, sometimes you like to watch the train wrecks, but for the most part, I prefer to, you know, to find out interesting stuff, not a couple of clowns, you know, kind of Googling stuff live on air, trying to figure out, you know, what they're talking about. But so there's a lot of great stuff out there. But when you talk about journalism, I don't think that the video game industry is doing its job at all. I think there's some great outlets. I think Dean Takahashi at Game Daily is another great one, and so that's, you know, I think there's a few journalists, but I mean, would you call Kotaku journalism? I don't know. You know, is it more, or is it more? You know, that's the problem, is that clickbaiting is now a business, right?
Yeah. So
how can we shock somebody so that they'll click our link so that we'll make more money? You know, but you know what? This is journalism. It doesn't matter if it's the game industry or politics. It's the same thing, right? I mean, when we were growing up, well, when I was growing up, you know, we had this cat called Walter Cronkite, and you had no idea if Walter Cronkite was a Democrat or a Republican. He was just, here's the news, right? And that's just missing these days. And I think anyway, like real journalism. And it just seems like a lot of these gaming websites will just take somebody's press release or take somebody else's website and then just, you know, repurpose it. And so, yeah, you know, I wish there were more. I mean, I think CNET does a good job at some of the stuff they cover. I mean, there's stuff out there, Forbes, but in regards to just like a video game only website, again, I like Game Daily. I think they're one of the best out there, and I like the stuff that Dean Takahashi does. If you Google his name and what he does over there. So anyway, yeah, that's my personal thing. I wish there were more real journalists than there were clickbait websites, you know?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's like they're activists as opposed to journalists. Corono said that on the. I agree with him.
Thank you, because like I certainly feel like when I see content creators and journalists, game journalists, when they cover stuff, it's like I want to know about the game. Like, is the game fun? Is it, you know, tell me the information about the game. I don't need your political or social opinion and all that,
right,
activism. And it's like, it's to a point where like okay, we can dive into the topic of politics. It's like watching politics. It's like, I want to know the facts. Stop giving me your slant. Give me the truth of what's going on. And it's so hard to find that, you know, and it's
I don't know of any place that has that.
None.
Really?
You know?
I mean, if we're being honest, you just watch what you're more aligned to, right?
Yeah.
That's all that's happening there.
Yeah. And it's and I see it all the time, especially with content creators, like with getting review codes for games and or hardware and just bashing it for the clicks, for the likes. This past Monday I had on John Bentley, who did the voice of Baird in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we talked about one of the people who got a review code for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and how he basically went on to bash the game and leak out all the information for the game, violating the NDA. I think it was like 17 NDAs.
Good job.
And, he did it for clicks. And it's like, yeah, you got the clicks. And now you got to deal with the legal ramification of that. It's sad.
Speaking of Kotaku, I just heard that the lead editorial, the guy who I guess runs the place, just quit today.
Oh yeah, Jason Schreier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. They're screwed.
I don't know.
So one of the other questions I have for you,
I'll tell you a last quick thing about Kotaku is, we're a brand new console. We've done some amazing things so far in regards to what we've shown and everything like that. And we've announced it's going on 2.5 years now, I think. Mm-hmm. And they haven't done one single story on us, not one. So, I mean, that's going to sound like sour grapes, like, oh, blah, blah. No, it's not that. It's like, isn't that kind of weird? Yeah. That like you're a gaming website and there's a brand new console coming out at 2020. Don't you think you'd do at least one story on it or whatever? But I don't care, because I would assume that if they were to do a story on us, they would just slag it off and whatever. So, maybe I should be grateful that they've ignored us. I don't know.
Speaking of which, 2 years ago you made the announcement of the Amico.
Mm-hmm.
So my question with that is, like, what was the desire for you guys to bring a new console into the market?
Well, I've been in the industry, like I said, over 30 years, and I was just getting sick of where I saw the industry going, if I'm being frank. Mm-hmm. Everything was becoming so solitary. As you get older, you don't have 10 hours a day to play video games anymore. And so like the older I got, the less I felt like it was for me. Like I loved Red Dead Redemption. I think it was one of my favorite games of all time, open world. And then when Red Dead 2 came out, okay, I'm going to set aside a day for this or a couple, 4 or 5 hours to get into this. And I was all excited, and, the wife was at work and whatever. So I'm like, okay, I have some time on my own. And so I get the thing out of the shrink wrap, put it in the PlayStation 4, and it had to do updates and then go. It was 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours of so it's well, there's my half a day gone that I had put aside to this. So then the next day I said, okay, I'll do it the next day. And then, so the next day I sit down and now I start to feel guilty, right? Cause my wife's downstairs, day off, the dog wants to go for a walk. My mom's calling and it's you have all these things. And then, so I get into it though, and beautiful game and everything. And then life happens, and then 2 or 3 days pass, and then I come back to it. I said, oh, let me dive back into it again. And I had forgotten all of the controls. Mm-hmm. I had forgotten it's so complicated, so complex, right? And I think I think that's a good window into what a lot of games on the consoles have become. They're these super long, and even when I was buying the game, it's what edition do you want? Do you want the $70 version, the $80 version, the $90 version, or the $100 version? I'm like, what is going on here, right?
Yeah.
And then you see the industry and you see the loot boxes and not only on consoles but on the mobile devices and how they're always trying to suck money out of you. And if they're not sucking money out of you, then they want your email address and your friends on Facebook list, or they want your credit card. And if they don't get any of those, then you're going to get pop-up windows. Then you're going to get 30-second ads every 3 minutes. So you're constantly in-app ads, microtransactions, boom, 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 all this stuff. And then you look at the complexity. Like, I used to be able to play video games with my mom and dad, and I put a PlayStation 4 controller in my dad's hand, and he has a freaking panic attack. He's like, "What? It's a non-starter. Just the controller itself. It's like, yeah, I can't do this, you know." And the same thing, like my wife, and she's younger than me. She's 35 years old, so she grew up loving Pokemon, and is a big Pokemon fan, and there's like not even games that like we can really play together. You know, and when we did sit down and we were trying to look for stuff on the Switch, and we're like, okay, how about Wheel of Fortune? We're like, great, let's play Wheel of Fortune. That's cool. 2 players, because, you know, Wheel of Fortune, there's 3 people, right? So we're like, okay, 2 of us and the computer. Well, we didn't have a second controller. Now you would think, well, you Switch, you can split the controllers and give her one. Because what do you do in Wheel of Fortune? You freaking spin the wheel, you pick the freaking letter. One person at a time. So you would think that I would just be able to pass the controller to her. That would be the first one. Nope, you can't do that. What the hell? Okay, so we'll split the controller and you get one, and because all you're doing is nope, you can't do that. We needed a second controller to play the most simple of 2-player game. And you're just like scratching your head going like, is anyone in the industry care at all about the people who are like playing these games? Like, is everything about profit and bottom line and margin and you know what the stock price is today, you know? And it just and to me, all of the best, most creative things are happening in the indie development community and the smaller developers. That's where the innovation is happening, not at the game publisher level. You know, they're cranking out the same stuff year after year after year. And again, it's great quality stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to crap on anyone else by saying this stuff. I'm just saying the question was, and I'm answering it, right? I've been kind of disenfranchised with the way the video game industry, it's complicated, it's violent, it's expensive, and it's solitary. And we took all those things and we made a list of all the things we didn't like in the video game industry, me and David Perry. And we sat down and I said, okay, here's how we're going to fix every single one of these. And that's Amico.
All right. You know, and given that you're the president and CEO of Intellivision Entertainment, what is it like to be in your position, like in the company? Like, what is a typical day for you?
Well, now it's different than it was last month because of that. I'm trapped here at home. No, I love being home. It's incredible. But what's today? I mean, you know, I usually wake up. I only sleep about 4 hours a day. So I typically wake up around 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and we usually start to have developer meetings over in Europe. We have a lot of German developers because we got a grant from the government, Bavarian government, to have super talented German developers create games for us. So that's really great. So usually have some meetings with them over Skype, talking about game design stuff, because I personally have my hand in every single game from a design standpoint and audio as well. And then it's doing interviews with folks like yourself, but it's a lot of business stuff, a lot of planning and budgeting stuff with my CFO, my chief financial officer. The Corona thing has got us crazy. So many, we have about 30 people in the company, and we're creating the whole thing's being designed, in-house. So we have hardware engineers, multiple hardware engineers, mechanical engineers, design engineers, product managers, firmware engineers, software engineers, back-end engineers, so it's a lot of, and the way I like to operate is I like to hire super talented AAA people and kind of let them do their own thing. I'm not the kind of person who is going to look over your shoulder. And then we have weekly meetings for different sections, whether it's hardware or software or marketing is another big thing. I spend a lot of time with our vice president of marketing, who's amazing. I mean, she came from Mattel and she was in charge of the Disney license. So if you know anyone who's ever bought a Frozen toy, you can blame her. And so these are the level quality of people that we have there. Everybody's a AAA. I work a lot with my vice president of business development and sales. His name is Phil Adam, and Phil is amazing. He's a guy who's been in the industry over 40 years. He was the co-founder of Spectrum Holobyte in the early 80s. If you've ever seen a Tetris documentary, you'll see Phil in those documentaries or represented in those documentaries. He was the guy who kind of brought Tetris from Russia, Alexei Pajanov, because there were so many people fighting to try to get it. I mean, even Mikhail Gorbachev was involved, and literally the communist, Red Army was involved in this thing, and he and so he was the guy who brought it out of there, and he was the guy who showed it to Hank Rogers in, I believe it was 1983 at CES. And Hank was the guy who then, of course, did the deal with Nintendo and this and that. So that's the level of Phil. But Phil also did the Crash Bandicoot deal with Naughty Dog and Universal. He did BioWare's first deal. He did some deals with this little company called Silicon and Synapse, which ended up changing their name to Blizzard Entertainment. So this is the level of stuff. So I work a lot with him. We're working on deals and licenses with some of the biggest licensors in the world. We got some really big mic drop moments coming up over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, anyway.
Awesome. Winding down to the last few questions that I have. So you're the founder and creator of the concert series, Video Games Live. It's been the question I want to ask is, what has it been like, being part of a multi-award-winning symphony orchestra that travels the world? That's got to be surreal.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that people would imagine it to be. It's, we fly in and the symphony doesn't travel with us. There's a team of 5 of us. It's me, it's the conductor, lights, video, and audio. So there's 5 people on the team, and we come in and we direct about 150 or 200 people. And we fly in, and they put us in the best hotels and the best food, and we show up and we work really, really hard that whole day to set up the stage. And then we'll have a rehearsal by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, about 2.5 hours. And then the show that night, and you're backstage and you're meeting people who love video games. You're meeting little kids who are coming to the symphony for the first time, and then after the show, I go out into the lobby, do about 2 to 3 hours of meet and greet with the folks, asking me questions and taking pictures and autographs and stuff like that. And then we get on the plane and either go to another city and do it again, or fly back home. So it's a lot of work, but it's a really fun payoff. I'll usually do interviews as well, like local TV interviews or newspaper interviews on the day of the show too. So yeah, it's super cool. I get to meet a lot of amazing gamers and people in general, and really showing video games in a positive way. And that's really comes back to Amico as well. That's our goal, is to bring people together and do something positive and wonderful with video games, put them in a different kind of light for a lot of people who don't play video games. And again, getting back to the people who hate us and are trying to destroy us, shame on you, right? What we're doing is we're creating thousands of jobs for indie developers, right? We're bringing people who normally don't play video games into the video game world, and you're trying to destroy that. Shame on you, right? So anyway, yeah, it's Video Games Live has been amazing. 18 years now.
Yeah. Smash JT has a question. He wants to know, Tommy, how many Guinness World Records do you have?
So I have 7, but some of them are kind of interlinked. Like, for example, one of the ones I have is the most symphony shows in a single year, in a 1-year time period. And I think it was like 70 or something, 70 symphony shows, for a touring symphony show. So, 70 different cities or whatever. But then I also have the record for the most symphony shows ever done by a touring symphony show. And that's over 520 shows we've done, which is a world record. The biggest symphony show ever seen live, over 752,000 people watching us live in Beijing, China. I mentioned earlier the person who's worked on the most video games in their lifetime, over 350 games. So yeah, so some of them are kind of intertwined with, but I would say there's 3 big ones. The 3 big ones are most shows, biggest live show ever seen, and then the most video games. So I have a total of 7, but there's 3 big ones.
Okay.
Hey, there's Vera Dark just entered. I'm loving all these. Vera's an incredible. She's got a great channel herself. Really positive stuff. Folks should check out Vera's channel. She's awesome. Because I always say I wish there were more female gamers out there, and Vera's like into the retro thing as well too. So even she's even more of a unicorn. But I'd love people should check out her channel. It's really cool. We got to support the female gamer YouTubers out there who are like serious, who aren't some of these Twitch girls. We don't. I mean, whatever, people can do it, but Vera is like legit, awesome, intelligent, funny. You should check out her channel.
Yeah, Vera, drop the link to your channel in the chat, and definitely, I'm glad you brought that up, because like literally, I can't go on Twitch. Like, I was on Twitch for years, and it's like they don't promote you. The only thing they promote is certain stuff, certain types of,
stuff.
You know what I mean? Yeah, stuff. Oh man. So one of the questions I want to ask you is, like, given how you are an icon in the gaming industry for over 30 years, like, and with everything you've done from playtesting to composing to development,
TV shows,
more TV shows, like everything,
nonprofit organization,
like, in your own words, how has that journey been? Like, how from start to finish, like, well, not even finished, it's still going, but from start to now,
it's only half over.
Right?
We got 30 more years to go.
How is that journey for you so far?
When I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I got my first Intellivision in Christmas in 1980. I would have been 12. And I even have the papers. I used to draw the Intellivision logo. I used to, me and my younger brother, we would make levels up of like Dungeons and Dragons, and we'd keep all of our stats for hockey and baseball, and we'd make our own team logos. And, I would literally, this isn't no bull. like I would I would dream of being like the president of Intellivision. I would dream. I'll tell you another story that I used to do. I used to take my dad's big cassette recorder. Again, this is the like late 70s, early 80s. And the cassette recorder is like this big. You had like 8D batteries you had to put in them. And I used to go down to our arcade, local arcade and local pizza shop. And I'd record all my favorite video game music. And then I'd bring it home and I'd record my favorite Intellivision games and computer games and things like that. And then I'd splice the tapes together. And then I'd invite my neighborhood friends over. I'd put the cassette player down. I'd hit play. The music would start playing. I'd pick up a guitar. I put my favorite video games on the TV behind me, and I'd put on a concert. And I'd charge my friends a nickel. And so I would put on these video game shows. And anyone who knew me growing up and who from kindergarten through 8th grade, I went to this Catholic school called Our Lady of the Sacred Heart in Springfield, Massachusetts. And anyone who knew me from that will tell you that I used to put on music shows and video game shows in school, and the teachers would let me, like they let me, because they'd see me doing it during during recess or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you should do that." And then once one teacher let me do it, then we went around and did it for all the other grades, and we put on skits, and the nuns were super cool. Like they allowed me to kind of, they saw that I was creative and had a sense of humor, and they really allowed me to like do that. So it was pretty cool. But the one thing, like I'm 100% Italian, and all 4 of my grandparents came from Italy, and they came out here with nothing. They came out in the 19 teens, right before World War I. And my grandfather always told me, and my dad, he would tell me, and my dad, he'd say, I left everything that I knew and I had. I left my family, because he was like a teenager when he got on the boat. So I left my family, I left my mother, my father, everything I knew. I didn't know the language. I didn't have any money, nothing. And I came to America for opportunity. That's the only thing I only ever wanted, opportunity from America. I wanted nothing else. I never stood in a bread line. I never, just the opportunity. And he would say, I just want you guys to know that I gave up everything, my life. Oh man. He'd say, I gave my life so that you and your dad could make, could have a better life. And he wasn't saying that out of guilt. He wanted us to know not to waste our opportunities, And so that's what I think about every single day that I wake up. I remember those words that I want to, the sacrifices that my grandparents made to a better life. Boy, I better not squander that. Right. So, I hope they're looking down, and they're being proud, and my mom and dad are still alive, and they tell me that every day about how proud they are, and this and that. So yeah, that's what drives me. I think the most is that,
Awesome, man. That's you definitely make you've made him proud, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
So we got 2 questions from the audience.
Yeah.
We've got a question. 2, 3. Oh, 3 questions. So let's go ahead and go with Gamer Thumb. His question is, Tommy, what's your favorite video game score you've worked on, and why is it Terminator on Sega CD?
Favorite soundtrack I worked on? The favorite music?
Yeah.
I'd say Earthworm Jim is one of them. Advent Rising. a game which not a lot of people played, unfortunately. It was on the Xbox and the PC, but I really love that. It took me 3 years. I wrote a big Italian opera. Earthworm Jim, Advent Rising, and I would say probably Terminator on the Sega CD. That was the first time anyone had ever used a live guitar for a video game soundtrack. Yeah.
Tim's Tiny Arcade says, Tommy, will there be something like achievements or trophies in Amico games or patches like old days?
Yeah, absolutely. At Tim's Tiny Arcade, absolutely. We're bringing back all that stuff that we loved when we were growing up that no one's doing anymore. Bring all that back, man. It's going to be, so yeah, we're you know, there's going to be, I'll explain really quick because I don't talk about it a lot, but I call it our time and space leaderboards. And what that means is time, meaning like, because one of the things that sucks about leaderboards these days is that you put in a really good score and you think you're like, oh, this is going to be so cool. And then you go on the leaderboard and you're like 32,400. I'm like, damn, I suck. Yeah. So that's no fun. It's not fun for me, you know? And so we're doing these time and space things, meaning you'll be able on the leaderboard, it'll go by like, who's the leader of the week, of the month, of the year, and of all time. So we break it down, and the space part being your location. So hold on. It's not Corona. Dry throat. Okay. It's getting hot in here. You need to turn that fan up. So also space as well, meaning state, country, world, right? So let's say that you recorded a big score in Astro Smash, and you say, okay, where am I in the world? Oh shit, I'm 32,400 of all time, world of all time. I'm like, you know, and then you could say, oh, what am I this week in the world? Oh, this, or what am I this month in the world? Oh wait, what am I this month in the United States? Boom. What am I this week in the United States? What am I this week in Hawaii? Holy crap, I'm number one. You know, so and then here's the great thing though, here's the thing is that because this ties into our trophies as well. So trophies right now, like anyone could get them. Anyone can get a trophy. Like if you you killed 1,000 people in God of War, here's your achievement. And it's like, well, 1,000 other people have that achievement. What we're doing is we're saying, if you end up getting the high score for the week in Hawaii of Astro Smash, wouldn't it be something if you were emailed a certificate, an official certificate that you could print out and put on your wall? Or if you were in the high score of the month in your country, or this and that. So this is the kind of fun stuff, because you're the only person in the world that has that. That's a cool trophy. Not like, oh yeah, I have an achievement that 2 million other people have because they've played the game for 5 hours. How about something that you can feel, you know, and remember, you used to have the patch. Activision would send you the patch, and Intellivision had the Astro Smash patch. You know, this is the kind of fun stuff. And by the way, all of your high scores and everything are also local as well, like within your household on that console. So if you and your brother or your wife or grandpa comes over, whatever, all of their scores on your own console, you know, you can have bragging rights as well.
Okay. There's a question by Miller B. I'm not sure.
That's actually not Miller B. That's actually Tony, TGD. So he's just trying to get his negative question in. But yeah, let's answer it. He says, I have a question for Tommy. Are you going to answer Tony's valid criticism of your mobile game system. So this is kind of funny because Tony had 3-hour. He had a 3-hour conversation with me. He's a very negative blog writer, and he asked me to come on and answer tough questions. I absolutely gave him that opportunity because I'm not afraid of anyone. I'm not a coward like the folks at the PU podcast who won't talk to me. But so I gave him 3 hours of time, and so he had 3 hours to ask me every single tough question he could, and I answered every single one of them. So I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but valid criticism of my mobile gaming system. Well, let me tell you about this mobile gaming system. Tell me, how many games can you play with 4 people or 8 people, aside from Jackbox? Tell me all the mobile games that you can play couch co-op. Go ahead, I'll wait while you type it in. So you have Space Team, you can play with 2 people. You have, like I said, there's Emoji Charades, there's Jackbox. So out of the millions of games that come out, 1,000 new games come out every week on mobile. Show me all of the games on mobile that have couch co-op, that have tactile controls, and that don't have 30-second ads or microtransactions. Go, I'll wait. So for someone who calls Amico a mobile gaming system is just ignorant and uneducated or misinformed. So there you go.
Ooh. See, this is why I love having you on the show.
Hey, I'll take any question here. I'll take it. I'm not afraid of these bullies. I don't care.
Winding down to the last couple of questions, because I definitely want to be respectful of your time, and
sure.
It's such an honor having you on the show. But what, if someone's looking to get into the gaming industry now, like, would you say it's harder now to get into the gaming?
No, much easier. And I'll tell you why, because there's so many great tools out there now, it just left my mind, but there's so many great, like there's was a Game Maker, Unity, of course, is the best. So you can, so anyone with a if you have like a good artist, and you're interested in programming and design, and maybe a buddy who can do audio. 3 people can put a pretty decent game together. You can build it on Unity or some of these great engines that you can kind of pretty much get for free. And there's amazing books out there, books on creating games and Unity. Just go on Amazon. You spend $15, $20, $30 on getting these incredible books, and so that's something that excuse me, where people can now put their own, games together. It's pretty awesome. So now is much easier, because if you can build something like that, see, in the old days, you didn't have access to the Sega Genesis, drivers or the dev kits, unless you were registered and had millions of dollars or whatever. So now it's easy for anyone to come in. If you have a great idea and a creative mind and you have an awesome idea, you can actually build it on your own time for free, so that, I think it's amazing. I love, like I said earlier, the best games are coming, and the best innovation is coming out of the indie developers. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're really fostering as well, is we're paying attention to all those folks, and we're bringing them to our system. By the way, another reason we're different from mobile is that all of the games are exclusive on our platform as well, something that mobile doesn't have. I'm still waiting, by the way, for that guy to tell me all the games, but I guess Miller B went away. Anyway, so it's funny how they run and hide, don't they? Cowards.
Wow. I love this.
No, you know what? I love bullying the bullies. That's what it is. I love, anyone can hide behind anyone can hide behind their TV screen, and or their computer screen, and me. It doesn't take. It's a coward who hides behind a thing and who throws stones. Here I am. I'll tell you who I am. I'm not hiding. And you want to give it to me, I'll give it right back. And too bad. The bullies love. They hate it when you bully them back, when you give them a little bit of their own medicine. It's funny to me.
Haven't you noticed, like, when you give it back to them, like how they become such betas? Like they just they cower so quickly. It's sad.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Here he comes. This is his big line. Exclusivity, when he spelled exclusivity wrong, is a lie. There were already mobile games in the PR. So what he's referring to, again, these are just uninformed people, but let's address them because it's funny to make, it's funny to have a little fun at their expense. The whole idea that so there was 2 games that were shown on our we showed a trailer with 23 games, and 2 of those games, and the 23 games are all exclusives, all completely created. Now 2 of those games, so 21 of those games were completed, were created from scratch. 2 of the games we showed, Evel Knievel and Emoji Charades, were games that had previously come out on mobile. And what we did is, and we know the developers very well, and I went to them, I said, look, these are great games, but they didn't get a lot of, they like, not a lot of people know what they are. So and I'll take the Evel Knievel game as an example. I said, look, I'd like to bring this game over to Amico, and I'm going to pay you up front, and we're going to give you a big royalty on the back end because a lot of the game is there. We'll get the Evel Knievel license. We'll pay for that. We'll bring the game over, and let's enhance the visuals. Let's create new vehicles. Let's create new levels. Let's redo all the audio. Let's put in multiplayer couch co-op. Let's put in new controls for the game. And people whined like little babies. You lie. You heard him just say that. You're a liar. Those games aren't exclusive. Now, is what I just said, we literally changed every single part of the game. Does that sound now? And that version of our game that we're paying for will not be on any other console or system or mobile or anything. Now, would you consider that an exclusive? I would.
Yeah.
Well, then there you go. Clueless, like Swami says, Miller B. Clueless. Anyway, we like to have fun with the haters. They're fun to, they come in puffing their chest out and they want to bully, and then we give them a little bit of their own medicine and kind of expose them. It's fun. We've been having fun here today.
So, what are some things like, what are some of your interests that fans may not be aware of that you'd like to share? Like things you'd like to do aside from work and gaming and music? Like, what are some of your passions outside of that?
Where's Houdini? He's usually down here. I think, I spend a lot of time with my dog and, Houdini, spend a lot of time playing, just having fun with my wife Shannon. Let me see, photography, bike riding, traveling. We do a lot of hiking when we can. I'm a big backgammon player. I love backgammon. Magic. I like to learn magic, which is fun. And let me see, what other hobbies? There he is. Come here, buddy. Come here. Get here. We'll say hi. Come here. It's okay. Come on. Up. Here we go.
So
Here's
cute.
Houdini. Here's Houdini.
So cute.
He's an Alaskan Klekai, which is a mini husky. Okay, he wants to go down. He wants to go down. Good boy. Good boy. And I work a lot around the house. I'm into comic books. I like I have a garden. I'm Italian, so we all have gardens. So I have oranges and apples and avocados, figs. That's an Italian thing. You gotta have to have figs, pomegranates, oranges, lemons, almonds, big olive trees. So I like to do a lot of that, mostly on the weekends. You know, I have a lot of exotic plants that I take care of. So, yeah.
Okay. So, I have a last question, but I just want to know: do you want to say?
Oh, and driving fast cars. That's another one.
Yeah.
And collecting watches. I'm a big watch guy, so I have a pretty big watch collection as well. So I like reading about watches and watching videos on watches and stuff like that.
I'm gonna say this about Miller B. Miller B. No one's shilling. You need to chill. No one's shilling.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's funny, right? It's kind of hilarious.
It really is. It's like, anyway.
Favorite Aerosmith song? Von Groots asks. Favorite Aerosmith song, really quick. It's not one that people would like. You know, I mean, it would be easy for me to say, you know, Don't Want to Miss a Thing, or you know, Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion, Dream On. But my favorite one is actually a song that maybe a lot of people don't know, but you should check it out. I just love the way it builds and everything. It's a song called Kings and Queens. So check out Kings and Queens from Aerosmith. Really awesome. Anyway, go ahead.
I was trying. Oh, okay. Frank Bell had a question. Well, actually, more of a suggestion. He was saying add the original Intellivision library for the Founders Edition.
Well, the reason we're not adding the original stuff right away is because we don't want to confuse people when it first comes out. We want to make sure that people understand and know that it's a brand new console and with new games. And so if we start releasing like some of the original stuff, and then people will start reviewing that, and then it's just going to cause a lot of market confusion. Like they'll think it's like a flashback unit, or you know, like you see all these NES minis, SNES minis. The TurboGrafx 16 just came out. Neo Geo's got one. Sega has one. The PlayStation one tanked, but they have one. So there's all these, you know, so there's all these great, you know, mini consoles out there, and we don't want to confuse that. So it's something that we're going to bring to console probably like by year 2, or when we feel like that it's been established at first. But all that stuff's going to come for sure.
Okay. Fabian or GamerThumb TV has a question.
Yeah.
He says he wants to know what's your thoughts on this Atari VCS thing. So
Atari, you know, in the early 80s, Atari owned 80% of the home console market, and we owned 20%. So make no mistake, they thoroughly kicked our ass. But a lot of people might not know this, is that, and they came out 2 years before us, and they were a lot cheaper. So it really makes sense. And I love Nolan Bushnell. He's a personal dear friend of mine, and the stuff they did was amazing. And who knows where we'd be today if not for the Atari 2600. And so we like to have fun. You know, we like to kind of have fun. But so I hope that the Atari VCS comes out. I even hope it's successful, because we're going to kick their ass. And finally, after 40 years, Intellivision is going to win the battle. Finally, it took us 40 years, and we're going to beat Atari this time. But, you know, I say that tongue in cheek. Look, the reality is they raised over $3 million on Indiegogo, and I don't want the machine to fail, because I don't want those people, those 10,000, 11,000 backers, whatever. I want them to get a product, and I want them to get a nice product. And, I like the design of the machine. I think it's cool. I like the Atari upgraded joystick. When the thing comes out eventually, I'm sure I'll pick one up as well, and I'll use it as like a Steam box or something, So I hope it comes out. I hope it does well. I know the folks over there who are working on it. I think they're good people. I think they might be in over their head. And I only say that not to be disparaging, but just knowing what it takes to make the Intellivision. Like, we have 30 people in-house working on the hardware who are full-time employees with benefits. They had one person, Rob Wyatt, who they contract for like 9 months to create their whole architecture, right? So, and then they farmed out the controller design to like a third-party controller. So I'm, do they have a marketing department? Do they have a PR department? Do they have people who are creating brand new games for it? I don't know. But I'm not sure they have the infrastructure that we do, and that a proper hardware company needs in order to succeed and carry on. But that being said, I do hope they succeed. But that's just my honest answer, and I'd say that to any of them over there. I'd give them my my thoughts and hopefully opinions on how to succeed.
Okay. And the last question I have for you is, what would you like to leave the audience with before we go?
That I guess I would say that Amico system, it's not going to be for everyone. So even if you don't necessarily like what you see right now, let's try to be positive about it, because even though it might not be something for you, it's something that's kind of going to be out there and unique, and, root for the underdog instead of trying to destroy the underdog because of whatever, mommy issues you have. But I would say that to even if you don't like it now, give it a chance, because it's very difficult for us to show the way the games are being done and controlled by just showing. You have to put it in your hands and you have to play it, and you'll notice that all of the YouTubers out there who have played it actually really enjoyed it, every single one of them, right? And so that's something to consider. So that'd be my final message: is sign up to our mailing list, IntellivisionAmico.com. And again, just, even if you don't like it, try to support us, because the idea behind it is comes from a place of good and positivity and passion. And again, getting people together who normally don't play video games, that can't be a bad thing, right? For the industry. So hopefully people will start looking at it like that, instead of, trying to be so hateful.
And I lied. I got one final question for you.
Sure.
Did you have fun
doing this? Oh, it was great. I mean, we got some questions that I've never got before. You got me to tear up, you bastard. Talking about my family, my grandparents. We made fun of the PU podcast a little bit. We pwned some hater noob. So yeah, I mean, this is a great time.
So, with that being said, tell people where they can find you, and also I'm leaving links for everything in the description below. And people, make sure you pre-order the.
Hey, Renee Rivers, he's Springfield, Mass, Cathedral High School. Yeah, there you go. Western Mass, rock on. People can find me. They can go to my website, Tallarico.com, if they want to find out any information about me or my career or music and the videos, the tours and stuff I've done, TV shows, all the games I've ever worked on. That's Tallarico.com, but also on Twitter and Facebook. Those are my two main things. I'm not really an Instagram guy yet, but Facebook and Twitter, and of course, IntellivisionAmico.com. Please sign up for that.
Yeah, and with that being said, people, you can catch this episode of the Cast Nova Podcast available on all podcasting outlets. Catch it live here on YouTube as well as on Twitch. It's also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. Yes, I'm reading off of it because it's right there and I can't remember all of it. But TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and if you want to get early access and exclusive access to the content we do here on the podcast, on our second podcast as well, which is the Best Damn Podcast Show, period.
Number one in Hawaii.
4 years in a row now. 4 years in a row, number one.
Congrats, my friend. Congrats. I know why. After doing this, now I know why. You're a great guy asking great questions. Positive stuff.
Yes, sir. And with that
and you're a shill.
Oh, yeah. So the PU podcast is right. I'm a shill. I'm shilling.
See, now you're calling it that. That's great. I love it. And by the way, I'll be over in an hour to give you a ride in the Ferrari, and I'll have a whole bunch of T-shirts and hats, and it's just going to be a party.
Cool. And if you guys want to support the show, we got Patreon, we got channel memberships here on YouTube, and everything you invest into us gets reinvested into the show and the content we put out. And with that being said, links to everything is down in the description below. Support the Intellivision Amico and just everything that Tommy's doing. It is an honor to have an icon and a legend like yourself on the show. I hope to have you back on the show at some point when you're available. I'd love to have you back.
Anytime. Let's do it. Let's get together in a couple months. There'll be a lot more information about Amico out there, and we'll do this again.
Definitely. And with that being said, people, this is Tommy and Mikhail. We are out. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Have a good one.